So I'm going to bring these people up. The first one here in our first seat is going to be Tim Minnick. And Tim has been at the church for quite some time. He's often the elder that comes and talks to us and lets us know financially where we stand as a church. He is a CEO of a company that builds transportation software. Is that my point?
That's correct.
So you tell the buses where to go and all that kind of thing?
Trucks and trains.
Sure, right. Okay. See, I'm really on top of my game. In the next seat, Michelle Wyatt. And Michelle has been around Brookside for a great deal of time. In fact, she used to work in our office here. And she now is a realtor and doing quite well in an agency. In fact, her second real estate agency. So this is Michelle. Next is Jason Haslett. And Jason is the founder and owner of a physical therapy office that has 4 locations. And in fact, Jason whispered to me just a moment ago that if his house burns down and we help him, free therapy for a month to everybody. Okay, so... Okay. Yeah, Jim McDowell now is going to go out and try to light your house. You see, next is Jan Tyndall, and Jan has been at Brookside for a great deal of time also. You can often see her working at Dove's Nest, but Jan is here, and she is currently retired. How many in the room are retired? This is your girl. Okay, all right. And then finally, Mitch Hall. And Mitch Hall is fairly new to Brookside, fairly new to the area, fairly new to a lot of things, just got married in August. Okay, so there you go. So yeah, how many of you have been married longer than that? Okay, tell him all the stories when it's over, okay? Okay, would you greet all these people up here, please? Before we get to our questioning, because this is basically a follow-up, Eric has been talking to us about God at work. We're going to try to talk a little bit about what that kind of faith and the expression of our faith, what does that look like if I carry God into the workplace? Does that mean I stamp the word Jesus on my forehead? Does it mean I wear a certain kind of shirt? Does it mean I talk a certain way? What does it mean? We'll walk through all this, but first let me go down through and get a little bit more. Tim is married to Lori. And you were telling me a little while ago back in the room, you have how many grandchildren?
I have 6 grandchildren.
He just doesn't look like a grandpa to me. I mean, my daughters are 35 and 39. Neither of them married. There are no grandchildren. And I shared with them back in the room a while ago. Kim works in the nursery every other month, and I'm terrified because the month that she works, I'm afraid she's going to steal a grandchild. She'll come home and she'll say, oh, that Smith baby is so sweet. I'm like, Kim, no, just back away. So you have the grandchildren. How many children do you have?
We have 3.
3, okay. And 6 grandchildren. Before we go on, what are the 2 names that you're known by as grandpa?
Well, I actually have 4 names.
Okay.
My grandkids in California call me Papa or Pop. And here in Fort Wayne, I'm referred to as Bobo or Bob.
Okay.
Bobo is kind of short for Bobo, and Bob seems to be the one that's sticking right now.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you say in California it's Pop or Papa? Okay.
Yep.
Are you sure they're not saying pot?
Yeah.
Because it's California. I mean, so come on. All right. So there you go. Okay. Hand the mic to Michelle. We're going to do a little mic sharing as we go through here. Now, you're a realtor, and you're in your second real estate agency that you've sold with, and you do quite well. Now, you used to work here.
Yes.
Back here. And what did you do?
Years ago, I was the administrative assistant for children's ministry with Linda Pearson.
Okay.
And then Cooper was born, so I took some time at home. And then I was in the office for 3 years as the secretary.
Yeah. She was always the one, she hated to get my phone calls because whenever I need something, I always call the front desk at church and say, can you get me even though I know I need it from this guy or this guy or this guy, I know she's tougher than I am, so she'll actually get it from him. So she's married to Steve. How many children?
We have 7.
Wow. So doesn't she look fresh?
It's a little early for that.
And how many grandkids?
And 5 grandkids.
Yeah. Now, I actually had one of your daughters in class when we did the collateral. And beautiful girl, and she's doing quite well.
Yes.
I had your 2 youngest sons in the studio with me once or twice. And that was something. They're in the studio with me, and all at once I open the mic and they start saying some things. She got so nervous. It was awesome. Because what are kids going to talk about? They're going to talk about mom. Yeah, the old battle axe. No. And next we go to Jason Haslett. And I'm not going to name names of companies today. Okay, I told you he was a CEO. And I'm like, if you listen to my program, you'll hear the name of his company now and then. That's all I'm saying. So that's another plug.
Yep.
So $75.
Thank you,
please.
thank
Okay,
you.
There you go. He's married to Tina. They have 3 daughters, Paige, Chloe, and Jaden. And now Paige just recently got married.
Correct, yeah.
Now, I have one question I've been dying to ask you, okay? Because she married a very nice young man from a very nice family. You're kind of a driven person, okay? You're kind of an A personality and all that. When he came to ask you if he could marry her, did you make it difficult for him?
I did not. I mean, I had considered that, but to be honest, he was so much more mature than I was at his age. Just the way he approached us to ask for my daughter's hand, I was blown away, and I just listened. So he did a great job.
Doesn't that tick you off? I mean, because that was your moment, you know.
I was going to be cleaning my gun and all that stuff.
Sure,
but
absolutely.
No,
well,
yeah.
See, here's the way it worked for us. See, when Kim and I got married, I shouldn't say this publicly. Is she in the room? Kim, are you here?
Uh-oh.
Where?
She's in the back.
Oh, boy. When we got married in May of 1975. Yes, there were some years that started with a 7, okay? 1975, the next month, I turned 21, and 2 months after that, she turned 18. It was for missionary reasons that we did that, okay? I'll explain it to you. But somebody asked me, they said, so when Shannon is 17, you'll let her get married? I said, not only no, but heck no. In fact, I worried for the first kid that came and asked her out because when he came to ask her out, when he came to the door, he wasn't going to finally get to take her out. I was going to nail him upside down above my garage door. So every boy that comes after that, I'll say, okay, now curfew tonight is 10 o'clock. You see that kid hanging up there? He was a 10:05. Okay, so we never had a problem with curfews. Next is Jan Tyndall. Jan, good morning. Good to see you.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
And Jan worked for a large corporation for about 30 years.
Yes.
You were in HR, and you were also the contact with the field agents. So you were talking and dealing with people all over the country. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Right.
And now you've been retired how long?
It'll be 17 years this year.
Isn't that amazing? Now, I'm going to ask, how long you been married?
52 years
52.
this year.
John, how you feeling? You doing all right? Okay.
Look at how tired he looks.
I wasn't going to say that. And then finally, this is Mitch Hall, and Mitch is our newest from this group to come to the church. He's originally from Lansing, Michigan, and I said to him this morning, I was thrilled that he was from Lansing, Michigan, but he saw the wisdom of God and got his education in the state of Indiana because he came down and he went to Trine, okay, and now he's been here in the area for a couple months. And I was going to pick on him about, what I'd said was, I'd thought about, you know, since we were bringing everybody up one by one, I would have little theme songs playing as they came up, you know, like when every batter goes up to bat, they have their song. When he came up, I was going to have him play the Purdue fight song. Since he's from Lansing. See, because my 2 favorite schools are IU and whoever's playing Michigan State. I'm just saying. I better check my crowd. Are there any Michigan State fans in here? I never said it, sir. I never said it.
There we go.
I didn't say it. I never said it. See, you got to check your crowd. Last thing, and then we'll get started. One time I was giving a speech in Peru, Indiana. Well, if you know where Peru is, it's in west central Indiana, here in the north. And I went and I spoke at this group, and it was like kind of a black tie affair, and everybody's all dressed up, and there's like 500 people in the crowd. We'd all had dinner. I got up, gave my speech, and they were all very nice and all that. And then the guy said, would you mind just taking a few minutes to do a Q&A, question and answer? I said, no, that's fine. I'll never do that again, okay? They came out, they brought a chair and a microphone, and I sat there. One guy over here, because it's going really well, this guy over here goes, so what ball teams you like? And I said, well, I like the Colts. He goes, no, college. And I said, well, football, you have to understand I grew up in Indianapolis, but for football growing up, I always followed Notre Dame. And there was kind of a slight applause and all that. He goes, what about basketball? I said, well, again, I grew up in Indianapolis, so I've always followed IU. You could hear an audible groan go all the way across the crowd, and in the back of my head, I heard a little voice that said, you idiot. If you threw a rock real hard from here, you could hit West Lafayette. So I thought I would fix it. And I said, But to be honest with you, I'd rather watch a game at Mackey Arena than Assembly Hall. There was this great applause, and I thought, I'm over it. And I started to go on, and he yelled again, and he goes, how come? And I said, well, at Mackey Arena, you don't have all those championship banners blocking your view. That was 9 years ago. I've never been invited back to Peru, and don't think I ever will. Let's start our panel today. We're going to talk a little bit about what God looks like at work. And so I'm going to start down at that end and work my way up. So Tim, let me ask you, you're a CEO of a company that deals with a lot of entities, and I'm sure a lot of municipal entities and everything like that. Can God show up at your workplace? Do you find yourself having to sometimes edit yourself that God doesn't show up too big at your company? What's that like?
He definitely shows up at my workplace, Pat. For me, any big event, any big meeting, anything that I find challenging, before that happens, I turn it over to God. I pray. And, it's interesting how other people recognize that. I think it's living your life publicly that other people will recognize, people that you work with.
Yeah.
And many times they ask about it. What are you doing? Or why are you praying? And it gives you a great opportunity to share your faith.
Do you sometimes, in those opportunities of sharing, do you sometimes feel like you're challenged a little bit, that you almost have to defend why it is that God is showing up?
I think earlier in my career that was the case. The older I get, the easier it gets, Pat. It's, I'm more comfortable with my faith.
Okay. So it's been a transition. I mean, it's you're constantly walking up the staircase, right?
Yeah, and I've shared this before. When I was younger, earlier in my faith, I was focused. I had things backwards. Number one in my life was me. Number two is my family, and God got what was left. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until, that all changed that my whole perspective changed. So I turned it around. Yeah.
So Jesus showing up at work is not difficult for you, and it's not really uncommon either.
No, not at all.
Okay, Michelle. Now, Michelle has worked with two different agencies in real estate. You're dealing with people with a high-ticket item. When you're looking at somebody now and they're going to drop somewhere between $100,000 and $500,000 on something, that's no small deal. Does Jesus first show up in conversations with them, or does he first show up inside of you to make sure you're doing things for right reasons?
Well, first, I start, like Tim said, with prayer, because it would be really easy to let the flesh come out and want to, do things for me. It starts with me, and then what I found is that it's really comforting for people when I tell them, God, I believe that God's in control. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for the investment that you're going to make. And if we don't get a house, then I feel that God is closing that door and he will give us something better. And I think that's comforting to them, whether they're Christian or not. They always have more peace about it. So, I think sharing that way is a good starting point.
Yeah. Now, for Kim and I, we built for the first time and the last time a new house, and we've been in it almost 2 years. I don't know if you remember this or not, but my front door is purple.
Yes, Kim's favorite color.
All right, yeah, I just want to mention that because Kim's in the room. So, Jason, you are, we could say CEO, but you're the founder and the owner of your physical therapy locations that you have. I have met probably 4 or 5 of your employees, and they're all decent. I don't know that they're all believers, but they all seem like very decent people. It seems to me you're very careful about the people that you select to work with you. So do you demand that they know Christ before they work for your organization?
No, I probably wouldn't have a job if I did that.
Yeah.
There are certain things you can't ask in an interview.
Right.
And you can get a good perspective of who you're speaking with and get a good feel, but honestly, you don't know. And I know you've been there and you don't know this, but we have I think we have a Mormon on staff. We've had a Jehovah's Witness on staff. We do have true believers on staff. We have people who don't believe at all. But that doesn't mean that I'm not willing to share the truth out loud at work. And they know that, and I do share that. I don't force it on anyone, but it just comes out naturally. And then it's kind of neat that sometimes questions come up, or they will come to me and ask questions about faith. So no, I can't pick and choose who's going to come. I pick them based on personality skills, work skills, etc. But I can't do it based on faith.
Yeah. I do sense when I'm there a very open, clean, decent culture, if that makes sense. I never hear things untoward from anybody on your staff, and anything like that. The one member of your staff, though, Kim, was your therapist Nathan? Okay, yeah, I remember she came home one time because Kim was getting over her knee replacement surgery, and she said I said, how'd it go today? She said, he made me cry. And I was like, oh, honey, that was coming out here. Oh, honey, back here, I'm like, well, then I'm not the only one. Okay. So let me ask you to go a little further before we come on down the pike here. And no names or anything, but you mentioned to me a situation kind of recently where you had to sit down with a staff member alongside another staff member and just try to correct a situation. What is that like? I mean, what's it like for you? How do you prepare yourself as a believer and as a boss? I'm getting ready to go into this room and have this conversation. How did all that transpire?
I'll be careful how many words I use,
Yes,
because this was a very recent event. And it was something happened that should not have happened, that involved a marriage of a coworker. And somehow I got entered into a text thread that she was sending out. And so I'll just leave the details. I won't say anything else than that. But that happened a few months ago, but it was in the back of my head. Should I say something? This isn't right, but yet it's not my business. It did not happen on work hours. What do I do? But the fact is, we really promote a family culture, that we're going to take care of each other. That if we as a staff cannot take care of each other, our patients sense that. How can we take care of our patients when we're backstabbing or mad at each other or whatever? So it's a family. Well, honestly, what happened was Eric's message last week or the week prior basically pushed me to realize I have to do something. Yes, it's just work, but it's actually, there's a bigger picture.
Sure.
And so after that, I called her into the office and had another female present with me, and we lovingly went through the thing without pointing fingers, but just discussed what came up. And it's one of those things where you are scared to do it because it wasn't involved in work.
Right.
But we still talked about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's smart. It just seemed right.
Well, it was involved in the workplace, but when you have things like that involves more than one person at your workplace, it comes into the workplace whether you like it or not. Yeah. Okay. Jan, good morning. So now you were 30 years working with HR and dealing with people in the field. Did you sometimes work with people in the field that you seldom or never even saw them? I mean, did that happen a lot?
No, I usually knew the people.
Okay.
I spoke to our, what we call agency heads, and, I did administration. All of the administration for agents in the offices came through my areas. So
Okay.
that was the big activity that went on in my organization. But I spoke to the agency heads and the top agents. So if that answers your question.
Yeah, no. So you did have some interaction with them, but
Yes.
sometimes you were hitting a downline on the other end also. You're talking
Right.
to this guy, and then he deals with the others.
Right.
Can Jesus show up in a job like yours, where you're dealing with a lot of numbers and moving papers and all of that, and you're dealing with people? A lot of that dealing is over the phone. Can Jesus still be part of what you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. It's a situation where it's not mine to initiate any kind of religious conversation or activity, because we're a big stock company, et cetera, subject to all changing laws.
Ever changing.
Ever-changing laws. But there are lots of opportunities, and certainly with the 100 or so internal people that I had to Fort Wayne, there was one-on-one activity, and it was mostly women, I will say, who had all kinds of complicated issues, and where they came looking for any kind of support, moral support, that kind of thing, I was glad to give it.
Were you ever told or sensed, because you worked with a very large corporation, did you ever sense, okay, I can help her with this problem, but I can only go this far. I don't dare say this, go there, or do that.
Sure, absolutely.
So how do you do that? Jason mentioned it a little bit that, even as the boss, there's some lines he's got to be careful. How do you allow Jesus to work through you and they don't feel like you're thumping the Bible and screaming salvation to them? I mean, how does that happen? Or did you thump the Bible and scream salvation at them?
No, I did not.
Right.
I did not. It was a situation where I love people. I love to be with people. I love interacting with people. And I think most people get that from me most of the time. And one of my major jobs was to fire people. And it just was the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of firing people, and that's a very difficult situation, more for them than me as time went on. But that's an opportunity I was given over and over again with people. And all you have to do is be there and sensitive. If you're not a Christian, then you're not in the mode of praying for people and thinking about their future when you terminate them. But enough said.
Yeah, so you can walk through a very difficult situation that's going to be very dark for them, but it can still be done in such a way that there's some level of hope for them.
Right,
as they go on.
right.
Okay, let's hand the mic over to Mitch here. And Mitch, again, congratulations on your recent wedding.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And her name is Caitlin?
Yep.
Okay, and things are still going very, very well?
As far as I know.
Okay, well, this May, for us, it's 45 years. My whole goal every day is at the end of the day, I still get to sleep indoors, okay? So some of it never changes. I'm wearing the purple shirt, right? Yeah.
Right, I get it.
So let me ask you, since you were most recently, more than us, on a college campus, before we get to where you work now, on the college campus, could Jesus show up? Did Jesus show up? Were there situations that it flowed easily? Were there situations when you had to make sure it didn't flow at all?
Sure. I would say for myself, the Jesus showing up on campus was probably more in college than it was the rest of my life, just from the standpoint of, excuse me, I didn't really lead a life of Christ until probably I was 18. So
Okay.
I was just out of the house, got onto Trine's campus, and I just found myself just leading a different lifestyle. Like, I think that's college is a big place where Christians can backslide. I had a lot of friends in college who grew up in a church or with family members that were Christians, and it was just really hard for them to stay in the right crowd, And I would say for myself, I didn't go out much, didn't really party. I still to this day don't drink. Not to be boastful of myself or anything, but it was very evident that those opportunities were there for me in college. And somehow, some way, the Holy Spirit was able to, make his way into my life and keep me on a really good path and surround myself with awesome people.
Okay, so you graduate from Trine.
Yep.
And then you get a position. And he is also in physical therapy like Jason, but you are an employee. What's that like?
Sure.
I mean, in your interactions there in your office?
Yeah, I think you posed a question the other day when we were meeting and asked if it was easier or harder or about the same to be a Christian in the workplace as what I thought it would have been before I got out of school.
Right.
So I think honestly it's easier. And I think it has a lot to do with where I work and the people that I get to work with and the platform that I'm given. So what I mean by that is I see people one-on-one all day long, and it provides a really good opportunity to build a relationship with people. So I don't ever just come out off the cuff and be like, hey, so you a Christian? But we have like Christian music playing in our treatment rooms, and we love people. Like I get a paycheck to love people every day, you know? So to be able to...
And to hurt them.
Yeah, sometimes. That's the worst part of the job. Having people cry is definitely not ideal, but it does happen.
Okay.
But no, I think it's a lot easier than what I thought, just from the standpoint of I didn't know how much support I could get from my staff members, and I didn't know how much support I could get from management. You know, they tell me every day, like, keep being a light in everybody's life and just continue to love the people that you work with and work for. So God is showing up every single day, without a doubt, in the workplace as well as in my personal life. Because we invest, much like Jason was saying, we're a family.
So we've talked to somebody who's a CEO, we've talked to somebody who's in sales, we've talked to somebody who is the founder, starter, and operator of his own company, somebody that worked a lot of years but now she's in retirement, and somebody who's recently out of school and doesn't own the place but works for the place, probably the same as if he owned them. How many of you found a connectedness to at least one of these stories up here? You can see yourself up here. Okay, it's you know, we're all in different facets of life, and I'm always encouraged. I've been encouraged already, but I'm encouraged, and we're going to go through and ask another round of questions here. But I'm encouraged to find out that this thing about, okay, how much Jesus win at what time, how far do I go? That I'm not the only one that does that. Okay, how many of you are or have been a CEO? Okay, how many of you have been in sales? Okay, how many of you have started and ran your own company? Okay. How many of you are retired? This is a large number for people in this crowd. And how many of you were college students? How many of you are talk show hosts? Let's keep it that way. Okay. Let's go back to Tim. Tim, we've talked about how it is that Jesus shows up. Now, how many employees roughly where you are?
We have 16.
16, okay. What if somebody else's faith shows up? And maybe it's a faith where they're a Christian, or you have other faiths in your office like Jason, and somebody's Mormon faith or Latter-day Saints faith or Muslim faith, that shows up. What happens when people in your office start to, and I guess maybe this is religious or otherwise, even political, you know, which really throws me because in my place of work, political stuff hardly ever comes up. But what's it like trying to oversee a company and then trying to oversee people with different sets of thoughts and faiths?
You know, I think, Pat, irregardless of their faith or their belief or their thought or their politics, you know, I think it's very important to love them as you would anyone else, as you would another believer, and then also pray for them. You know, it's as simple as that.
We say that, pray for them, but do you catch yourself actually doing that? Are there times you're in your office and you think of Bill or Sally and you literally go into prayer for them?
I do, Pat. I have a routine. I have a 22-minute drive to work every day. And every morning, that's my quiet time, my prayer time. Sorry, Pat, I don't turn the radio on.
In the morning, I don't care.
Yeah, okay. I listen to you at night.
There you go.
But it's my time to talk to God and to relate with God and to pray for the people that, for this body, for my family, for the people I work with. That's my time.
Let me go to Michelle, because Michelle's in sales, and again, we're talking a large ticket item. You go from somebody calling you up and going, hey, I understand you represent the house at such and such. Then you set an appointment, then you meet, then you're walking them through the house, then discussions start. I know, we've never had this conversation, but I know you're tempted because I'm in sales too, okay? And if I'm getting ready to close an annuity and it's a $300,000 annuity, and so I know in the back of my head, I try not to think of dollars, but I know in the back of my head roughly what that's going to mean to me if it were to happen. You could be tempted to say one more thing or to shade one more piece of information that might stop them from doing the sale. What's that like when at that instant you can tell they're right on the fence? If I say this one more thing that may not be absolutely the most right thing I've ever said, or if I don't tell them about the leak in the basement, this is a done deal. What's that struggle like for you?
Well, being a mom, it really helps because I feel like if I wouldn't sell this house to my kids, I will oftentimes say, this is not the right house, I'm not going to let you buy this.
So you actually talk them out of it?
I have talked them out of it, yeah. And there's times, when people buy a house and then later on there is a leak, and it's pretty devastating, actually. But for the most part, most of my business comes from referrals. So I'm gonna see these people again. I want to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to do now. And I'm definitely not perfect. I fail every day. My mouth gets ahead of my brain too often. So I just always ask the Holy Spirit just to help me keep a hand over my mouth when I'm not supposed to say something.
And somehow through all of that, God gives you the sales that you need, and He gives you right people for right houses.
Yes.
I remember the gentleman that we ended up going with as our builder because we talked to everybody. Okay,
Yes.
It's not the parade of homes anymore. What is it? The thing all over town?
Town and Country.
Yeah, town. Yeah. There's not a builder in town we didn't talk to. I got so sick of looking at houses I could scream. And the thing that really sold me was my builder and I were alone in his truck, and we were in a neighborhood where we were looking at a lot. And as we were pulling out, not one, not two, but three different people that were out taking their walk or walking their dogs or whatever, they waved him over and we pulled over the curb. And I heard the conversation between my builder and these people that have now been in their house for a year or 3 years or 4 years. And I could tell there was no contention between them or anything like that. And I'm like, I'm comfortable with this guy, and that's the way I think it ought to be with a realtor too.
Right.
Let's go to Jason. Jason, when you have situations and clients that come in, and I got to say something funny about your staff, because I know everybody's not a Christian, but you know who my therapist is, okay? In fact, she and her husband, before they were husband and wife, actually came to Collateral where we taught, and so they would be here. One day we're on there, and you use a sound system where you pay, and every month they feed you the music and all that. I remember one time she was working on me, and all at once I heard this thing in this rap portion of a song, and I'm like, did I just hear the word I think I heard? And the way I knew I heard it was, Ashley said, I'll be right back. And she went in, and all at once I heard the music go, yada, yada, yada. And it came to a stop, and I'm like, okay, somebody pulled somebody's plug. So she was a little careful about that. What does it mean to you when you're out in public and you see a client and they come to you at your table or whatever, and they say, hey, hi, whatever, and they just say a word or something where everything that you've tried to share through your business has gotten to them, that it's a positive. And I don't mean positive just for, I'm going to come back for 10 more visits and you're going to make money on me, but I mean a positive that going forward, what you've tried to do with your employees and with your office, that's the way it's been caught by that person. How rewarding is that?
It's rewarding, but I get a bunch of different emotions. Through the years, different people have come up and said, hey, your office is great, your staff is great, or whatever. They'll give me an example. And sometimes I'm so happy to hear it, like the message got across. Other times, it's kind of like I'm embarrassed, because sometimes it's hard to accept praise. But what's funny about it is all we're talking about is people treating people correctly. And why does that have to be a big deal in healthcare? We have a problem in healthcare, and the problem is things are happening too quickly. People don't get time with their physician. It's just rush, rush, rush. It's all about the dollar, and so it's weird that it has to be a surprise that somebody took the time that the other person deserved and was paying for. So it's kind of weird, but what you were saying about the music is true. Music is a big deal at all of our offices, and it's a rule. It's in our policies that music has to be playing because it just kind of lightens the air a bit. But there are two things we don't allow, and that's anything vulgar and no sappy music.
No what?
No sappy music.
No sappy music.
Nope.
So
'Cause-
there's no Barry Manilow playing. Is that what you're telling
That's
me?
right, because what I say in a joking manner is I don't want to be massaging some hairy back of a guy and have sappy music in the background. So that's how I get the point across.
Baby, I love it when you touch me. Yeah, there's some things you just want to hear at that
Can't have
moment. You can't have Write that down. Jesus, yes. Sappy music, no. How much did it change when you went from being a light for Christ at a workplace where you're dealing with agents and general agents all across the country to being retired? Did you find that with your friends and your contacts and other things you do now with Dove's Nest and things like that, did you find that there's now a whole new circle, but the sharing Jesus stays pretty much the same?
Well, I'd say that now the curtain has risen on my ability to share Christ.
Okay.
I am retired. I am free. I work at a Christian organization with the time that I spend volunteering, and that's a wonderful opportunity. I don't really get to witness much, but I get to affirm things, and I have things confirmed, obviously, by a lot of Christian women who work there. And if that's your question, then I'd say the pressure's off.
Okay. So there's a whole new freedom.
That's right.
Okay. Because you retire from where you work, but you don't retire from your walk.
Right.
Okay. We need to all know that. And finally, let's come back here. And I want to ask you, Mitch, as we close out here with this portion of the service today, and I got to ask you this question. Okay. Show him your socks. He's got socks on
I've been
with
looking at those.
cherries on them.
That's great.
I want to ask you a question. Did your wife make you wear those?
She did not. So, fun fact about these socks. I actually wore these for our wedding, and the last time I was on this stage, it was getting married. So
You wore these
it's
socks
ironic.
in your ceremony?
I did. and
You are
I'll-
a brave
I'll
man.
tell you why. So one of my patients, who's 9, she got me these socks as a wedding gift.
Is that right?
Yeah. So
Okay, everybody. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I wore them for my wedding, and I figured I would wear them today.
That's a very
Yeah.
cool story.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wear the purple sweater because I have to.
You're right.
Um,
And because of the door.
Yeah, you see, you've
Yeah.
learned already.
I'm picking up fast.
You think I'm being funny? Keep that in your head. When you're at 45 years, you're still going to remember that. Okay, look, you're young. You're 25?
Yep.
Okay, you're young. You're fit. I hate your guts. Your waist is as big around as my left thigh. Okay. Let's look out 5 years and 10 years from now. And I'm not talking now about your business. I don't know if someday you want to own your own therapy studio or whatever.
Sure.
Where do you see you and Caitlin and Jesus in 5 years? How do you see that moving forward?
Absolutely. We've had conversations about that just recently, actually. We would love to take a vacation to Europe next year and then potentially look at starting a family. So that within itself, just the two of us leading our children in a godly household, really would just kind of be
Yeah.
at the top of the list. You know, work is work, and we can love people through our work and everything, and that's what we're called to do. But there's something special about coming home, spending the time with Caitlin, and then eventually being able to be that light and be a father to my children. My parents weren't necessarily like getting me to church every Sunday, but they were. I feel like they did a pretty good job of parenting me, and I love them for everything that they've done. So being able to look at the lessons that I've learned from them, but also take all of the little intricacies that I've picked up from other believers, whether they're parents or not, and integrate that into how I'm raising my children and who I want them to be when they're older, that really takes the top spot on the shelf for me in about 5-ish years.
Let me ask the rest of the panel about you.
Sure.
Does this not give you hope and encouragement to hear a young person talk like this?
Yes.
Because most young people aren't talking like this, okay? I mean, doesn't that give you hope? A little bit of hope? Yeah. So you want to run for president?
Not
I
exactly.
think I figured something out. So we had Mitch, we had Jan, we had the CEO of the boss. the father of 3 daughters. You're far more braver than I am. We had 2, and the reason we had 2 is we didn't want 3. Okay, and if the second daughter would have come first, we'd only had 1. Okay, and we had Michelle. Okay, and we had Tim. So we've had a CEO, an agent, an owner, a retiree, and a brand new employee and a former student. I hope you've appreciated what they've done for us today. Let's go ahead and thank them for being here, and they can come on down. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.